Okay, we are going to make a foldable. Again, I told you at the beginning of the year I'm not a real big fan of foldables, and that's true, but I do think this is going to be a good one. This will help us with understanding inequalities a little bit better. I know other classes are doing this foldable as well. They're going to do it piece by piece. We're going to go ahead and do the whole thing now, so you can go ahead and start studying now ahead of the game if you want to. Again, I encourage you to make this foldable and take the time to do this. All right, so here we go. First thing we're going to do, I'm going to take a piece of construction paper, computer paper, notebook paper, it's all the same. And we're going to take it and we're going to fold it over like this. We're going to make a square basically. Okay. So we're making a big triangular square. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Okay. So I basically folded it over right here. Turn the brightness down a little bit. All right, now what I'm going to do is when I fold that triangle and I create that little triangle right here, I'm going to cut this part off right here along this edge. I'm going to cut it off. Okay, so now I have a square. Again, let me zoom out a little bit. Now I have a square. It's a pretty good square because I cut that end off, okay? Now the next thing I'm going to do is that same corner that I took to fold all the way over, I'm going to fold it to that crease right there. Some of you girls, maybe guys too, have done this before. And I'm going to do that all the way around. I'm just going to keep folding until I make another square with little flaps. For you guys that make paper airplanes, it's kind of like making a paper airplane everywhere. Now you have a kind of a little thing that looks kind of like an envelope. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it up. Okay. And then I'm just going to make sure I have a tight crease there to kind of hold it down on each one of them. And so basically, and again, with regular paper or the longer you have this, this is your foldable right here. Okay, you're going to be able to open this up and there's going to be notes in there. All right, and you're going to open each one of these up. Some of you ladies used to play that game with the little thingies. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm just old and I do that. Okay, I did that. All right, so again, let me just show you this real quick. Don't forget, the first thing you did is you folded this paper all the way over. Okay, and you had a little piece down here that we cut off. You cut that off, and now we have a perfect square for the most part. Then you take that corner up here that you folded earlier, you fold it to the middle. Not all the way across this time, middle. And then you fold each fold down to it, match it up. Okay, so each corner is going to meet in the middle. And now you have your foldable. All right, so let's go ahead and put some notes on there. And we can label it, I'm just going to label it up here, inequalities. Now, keep in mind, if you're using a Sharpie marker, it's probably going to bleed through a little bit, so watch that. I'm going to start with the Sharpie marker for the outside, and then I'm going to go ahead and use a pen on the inside. All right, so I'm going to draw my inequality signs. Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and then greater than. Okay? So now this is the beginning of your foldable. So here's your inequalities. If you go around it again, it's greater than or equal to, greater than, less than or equal to, less than. Okay? And you got to remember, these look the same because they're upside down. Okay? If you want, another way you can write this, if you're looking at it like this, you can write it going this way, and it's opposite. So you can take that one off if you want. Okay, that makes it look a little bit easier to understand. Okay? All right, so let's put notes in there. All right. So open up your flap that says greater than or equal to. Okay, you're going to write these things on here. These are key words. Is at least. Is at minimum. Is no less than. And then, of course, is greater than or equal to. So those are some key words. Is at least, is at minimum, is no less than, is greater than, or equal to. Okay, those keywords will help you identify what sign to use the greater than or equal to sign. Okay? When you graph on a number line, it's going to be closed. It's going to be a closed dot and arrow should go left. I'm sorry, should go right. But that is only if your X is on the left side. We talked about that in the other videos, so that's not a big deal. So your graph is a closed dot. The arrow should go right. And it's only if the X is on the left side. And I'm going to show you one more thing. And I'm going to put it up here on this flap. And I'm going to label this linear inequality. Okay. We're going to talk about this next week. This is something that we're going to talk about next week, but I'm going to show you now. Linear inequality is when we actually use a Cartesian plane. And we graph like we normally would graph. Well, when you do that, you're going to have a solid line, okay, because of the equal to. It's like having a closed dot. Solid line is like having a closed dot. You're going to have a solid line, and you're going to shade above because it's greater than. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. Y is greater than or equal to X. It's going to be a solid line, shaded above. Okay? And again, this is your y-axis and your x-axis. I don't expect you to understand everything in here, but I want you to start studying this. So your keywords are is at least, is at minimum, is no less than, is greater than or equal to. These are extremely important whenever you're solving word problems. Okay, when you see these words in there, you know you're going to be dealing with greater than or equal to. One thing we're going to talk about this week is graphing on a number line. When we graph on a number line, we're going to have a closed dot. As long as your X is on the left side, your arrow is going to go to the right, or your line is going to shade to the right. And then when we start talking next week about linear inequalities, we're going to have a graph that's on a Cartesian plane like the graphs that we've been doing that go on infinitely. It's going to be a solid line because of the equal to line there. That's our indicator I mentioned in the very first video. And then we're going to shade above because it's greater than. Okay, we're going to shade above because it's greater than. All right, let's go to the next one. The next one, this one, if you remember, is less than. Okay. When we do less than, some key words. That is less than, of course. Okay, that's the most important keyword there. That's pretty simple when you're dealing with less than. Other than that, you start dealing with other ones that include the equal to. So we're going to stick with just that one. Okay? When we graph this on a graph, and this is a graph of a number line, we're going to have an open circle because it does not include the number we're starting with, so an open circle. And as long as your x is on the left, our arrow or our line should go left. That's assuming that your x is on the left. Okay? When we start talking about linear inequalities next week, I'm going to label this again. Linear inequality. When we start talking about linear inequality next week, again, like I said a second ago, we're going to be dealing with a Cartesian plane, your your y-axis, your x-axis. In this case, your graph is going to have a dotted line because it does not equal. Whenever you don't have that, if you're doing something like this, y is less than x, it doesn't have that line underneath it, so it's going to have a dotted line. And then because it's less than, we shade below. So dotted line, shaded below. Okay? Halfway there. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next one we're dealing with, it's upside down now because of the way we have our thing, but if we do it this way, boom, dealing with less than or equal to. Okay, so let's get after it. Some key words. Of course, is less than or equal to. Is at most. Is at a maximum. Is no more than. Okay, several keywords for less than or equal to. Okay, when we graph, again, if we're dealing with the number line, we should have a closed circle. Okay, again, because it is equal to as well. So that's why you close the circle, and it should be shaded. If the x is on the left, shaded to the left again. Okay? If the x is on the left, it should be shaded, or the arrow, I said arrow like the other ones. The arrow should go to the left, it should be shaded to the left, or your line goes to the left. Any way you want to say that is fine. Okay? Again, very important to memorize those keywords. All right? Again, my linear inequality. Dealing with our Cartesian plane again. If we have y is less than or equal to x, this time, because of this indicator right there, that equal to indicator, it's going to be a solid line. So we include all the numbers and all the coordinates on that line, and it's still going to be shaded below. Okay. So solid line, shaded below. All right, last one. And this is greater than. X is greater than. Okay? Keywords. Okay, of course, is greater than. Is more than. Okay, not a whole lot, okay, because that's a pretty specific answer. When we graph this on a number line, because it does not have the line underneath it, okay, it's not equal to, it's just greater than, we're going to have an open circle or open dot, and if your X is on the left, your arrow should go to the right. Again, all of these are based on your X being on the left side, so keep that in mind, okay? Make sure your X is on the left side. Okay, and then of course our linear inequality. And kind of getting memorizing this information right here is going to get you ahead about a week. Okay, put you ahead of all the other classes. If we're graphing y is greater than x, okay, again we're dealing with our Cartesian plane. This time we're going to have a dotted line again because we do not have that indicator line underneath there. If that line is not there, I've said this a couple times now, if that line is not there, our line that we graph is a solid line. I'm sorry, it's a dotted line. So we have our dotted line there, and then because it's greater than, we shade above. Okay, again, dotted or dashed line, depending on who you're talking to. Dotted line, dashed line, everyone look at it, and shaded above. Okay. A couple things I want to point out too before I end this video. One, we use the word is in all these keywords. If you open this back up and you see all your notes, we use the word is in all these keywords. Is greater than, is more than, okay? Is at least, is at minimum, is no less than, is greater than, is less than, is, okay? And the reason that we do that is because, or the reason we have to do that is because if you say 4 less than 5, okay, that means subtraction. That means 4 minus 5, okay, or 5 minus 4, if you use the word less than. But if you say 4 is less than 5, then you would write the inequality. Okay, so please keep that in mind. I'm going to try to bring that up in class again so that everybody understands, but make sure that if it doesn't say is, then you're dealing with subtraction. If it says is, then you're dealing with an inequality. So that's very important. That is extremely, extremely important. You know how many students get confused because of that. The last thing I want you to do, just to kind of make this easier for you, I didn't think about this before we got started, but go ahead and write what each one of these is so that you know, okay, because a lot of times students don't even recognize the sign. So this is greater than or equal to. That's what that sign is. This one is less than. This one is I'm going to rewrite. I had it up here earlier. I'm going to rewrite it again. I can't decide the way I like it best. I think the best way to put it is this way. As long as your X is over here, okay? And this would be less than or equal to. And then this one would be greater than. Go ahead and label all your sides there. If you label, it'll make it easier to study and understand to learn. All right, again, bring this in on Tuesday when you come in, and it'll be bonus. Have a good one.